Okay, so today's guest is someone I've known for a while and someone widely respected in the power systems field, not just here in Australia, but internationally. So today I'm joined by Babak Badrzadeh, co-founder and director of Bespoke Energy. Babak, thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Liam. Thank you for having me. I'm very well and looking forward to have this podcast with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess before we dive straight into questions about your career and all that type of stuff, always good to understand how things generally are going for you. I mean, how's life? Are you still playing tennis? How's everything going?
I am not playing as often as I used to, but I'm still playing twice a week, yes.
Okay, nice. Twice a week's still a good effort, I would say. So no, that's good. Good stuff. And how's kind of work life and all that type of stuff? You enjoying things from that perspective?
Yeah, it's great. So I think we are a small business, so there are some periods of peak, some periods of trough, but in the end, down to us to manage. So some periods we take a little bit more, in some periods we try to rest to its overall trajectory that matters rather than certain periods.
No, absolutely, absolutely. As its highs and lows, which we can get into from a business perspective, and I guess that's one of the things that's interesting about since we've been speaking, because when we first started communicating, you were working at AEMO, and we were both kind of employees at that point in time. I was working for another organization. Since then, we've both gone on to start our own businesses in our respective fields. So yeah, I mean, how have you found the journey with Bespoke and Etik and that type of thing prior to getting involved with it all?
Yeah, so I have been working in the power industry for more than 20 years, probably 22 or 23 years. And until recently, around 18 months ago, I have always worked in a large corporation. And I guess that's where you work in different types of organization and different skills and different countries, as I had the privilege to work. And you learn from other experts and you learn the foundations of for-profit and non-for-profit organizations and how you should basically operate and business at some point in time, especially for someone like me still in 40s. I thought it's an opportunity that it's either going to work, or if it doesn't work, there is no regret. And fortunately it has worked, so quite happy to have established Etik Energy and Bespoke Energy subsequently.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, and congratulations on that. I mean, it's a big move, it's a big step. So yeah, it looks like everything's going really well so far. So congrats. And
Thank you very
I guess
much.
before we go really deep into that, like from your career perspective, I mean, are you able to give us a journey through your past and your career and how you kind of got to where you are, starting your own business and that type of thing?
Okay, so this could be long because I'm not that young, but I try to be quick so that you have the opportunity to ask your other questions. I initially got my bachelor's and master's degrees in power engineering from Iran, and then I thought I want to do more, and there is not much opportunity to do a real PhD in Iran, so I moved to UK, did my PhD, and back then I chose wind power as the area that I focused. It was still in relatively early days, and part of this decision was that I could basically have opportunities to come with more novel and niche ideas. There weren't so much of competition, and that decision impacted the rest of my professional career for like, now we're talking about 22 years after that. And I stayed in UK for a while, so working in a consultancy business for 3 years. Back then, there is no secret that there wasn't any solar farm or any batteries, and maybe you see one wind farm every year or every couple of years, but things have changed quite significantly. And I stayed there for 3 years. Then I thought I want to be even more specialized in wind business. I relocated to Denmark and started to work for Vestas, which is the largest wind turbine manufacturer in the world. I work in their R&D department, a lot of learning, which I feel it was very important to complement other dimensions and other types of organizations that I have been serving with that knowledge. And then in early 2012, for a combination of work-related and life-related reasons, I decided to migrate to Australia. I have been here in Australia and Melbourne for past more than 13 years, of which around 9 years I was with AEMO, working in different departments. Again, a lot of learning, which we can go through if time allows. Around 4 years ago, I decided that I want to still learn other things and be in other sides of industry. So therefore, I joined Oregon, a large consultancy business. I stayed there also nearly 3 years, or precisely 3 years. And then early last year, we established Etik Energy with three of my longtime colleagues and friends. And recently we are transitioning to Bespoke Energy, although we are still keeping Etik Energy as well. Very similar type of work, is still a small business, and we are more focused on high impact areas rather than performing a lot of studies that may require teams of 40 or 50 people. So I hope I haven't missed anything, but that's just a quick summary I can provide.
No, that's very interesting, and interesting for everyone listening to hear that as well. I'm pretty aware of your background, having been speaking to you for a while, but yeah, the companies you've worked for and the roles that you've held within them kind of speak for themselves, I guess. And that kind of has led you to this point where you're able to start your own business and obviously be a bit of a leader and a voice within that power systems specific area. One of the most interesting things, I mean, going right back to the start, obviously mentioning that you're originally from Iran. One of the interesting things that I find from a candidate perspective in the power industry is that how many high-level candidates are Iranian, to be fair. So I often ask people when I'm chatting to Iranian candidates and people that I've placed and that type of thing, like, what drives that? Is it the universities? Is it high quality? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. There's not probably one right answer, and I can't. I have been out of country for many years, but this is a trend that I believe is still probably applies. That in the country for public universities, you need to have very good marks, and then rightly or wrongly, normally the best student goes to electrical engineering. So normally the best rank students will go to electrical engineering. And in my time, I don't know if that is still the case or not. You have a choice depending on your mark in the universities to choose power engineering or electronics or telecommunications. So my mark was sufficient to go to either of the three streams, but back then I felt that I wanted to do power engineering because it's more related to tangible assets and bigger things that I can relate to. But more broadly, your observation seems to be quite right. There are many Iranian power engineers in Australia, and I'm glad to hear that. Seems to be a good feedback. Beyond that, I don't know, but what I can tell you is that normally you should be a good student to do power engineering or electrical in general.
Makes sense. And I guess, I don't want to unpack every single role that you've had because we could be, here a while with all the high level positions you've held. But I guess from a career overview perspective, if you're looking at like maybe either project milestones that you're kind of like particularly proud of or things that have shaped your career from a project perspective, is there certain pieces of work or projects that you've done that really stick out as like, something at Vestas or AEMO or something like that would really, stick out for you?
There are many, and if I pick up one or two examples, it doesn't do the justice to people that I have worked with and the projects that I have contributed. But I'm just mentioning, two or three very briefly, and the only reason I'm picking them up, and it's all related to one organization. It's not because like I have done the best or they were the most important thing, maybe elements of both. But I would see it from a social impact perspective. The first is that the South Australian blackout, which we had on 28th of September 2016. And after it happened, we were assigned to investigate, and I was assigned to become the technical lead of the investigation. I believe, the work that we did back then at AEMO and the fact-based, data-driven analysis that we carry out to understand exactly what happened and what it didn't happen, it really shaped the foundation industry that, things should be based on modeling, based on facts, and for basically future that has, followed for another, 9 or so years. I think back then we were able to understand exactly what happened and what it didn't happen, which gave a good industry impact, and especially in an era that maybe the perception on renewable energy was not as positive as it is currently, but it shaped the foundation, and the Finkel recommendation that followed from it based on the rigorous report that AEMO published. I will then go and talk about maybe 2 of them, quickly. Like I said, following AEMO's report, and Finkel was assigned as chief scientist to develop recommendations for different organizations, including the likes of AEMO and AEMC, etc. And 2 which I'm very proud, and I participated along with my team, and I led those projects. One was the development of a wide area EMT, or electromagnetic transient model of the NEM, which I tend to believe still remains the largest model of this kind available. And the good news is that we were able to, validate it against real disturbances. It's not just that any fault or any disturbance you throw at it, it shows you instability. So where it's supposed to be stable, often it is stable, and where it's not supposed to be, it give you those instability mechanisms. And another thing which, from a personal perspective, I had already been working on it before even the South Australian blackout, is the concept of system strength, but maybe it wasn't taken as seriously, until South Australia, which to me was a catalyst of a lot of good work that the industry in Australia, all different types of organizations have been doing. So I think we needed that maybe as a wake-up call to really bring us to the situation that we are currently, that a lot of other countries compare themselves and try to learn from things that happening in Australia. Back to system strength. That was another recommendation from Finkel framework, and the methodology as to how you go about and assess the system strength.
No, there's some pretty good headlines there. I mean, it's interesting that with the EMT study that you did, it wasn't just concept in a way that you actually got to test it on the disturbances as well, because I can imagine in your field, like, that doesn't always necessarily happen. So that must have been quite rewarding when you got to the genuine tests done.
Yeah, and the other perception, I think for us, was not a matter of choice, because we couldn't replicate the South Australian blackout event, exactly the causation chain, if we weren't to use the EMT modeling. And, if we were to use EMT, we could just see exactly what is happening and then come with mitigation measures that, to break the causation chain. But one important thing was that prior to that, is just that you're talking to anyone saying that, okay, EMT modeling can be done in much smaller scale, but if you want to do such a large scale, it's probably not possible. But I think it's really, because you don't have any other choice, you will do it, and it's just persistence, patience, and having a really great team that I had back then to allow us to accomplish this milestone.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, I guess there's a lot of effort from a lot of different people that go into something that's so significant. So it sounds like you all pulled together and got there in the end, which is a good result. And then I guess from the perspective of starting your own business and going down that route, everyone has their own reasons why they decide to kind of venture out on their own. From my perspective, I think it was the idea that, you know, I wanted to create something new, be focused in a niche and that wasn't already being done, and really, you know, push all our efforts into that specific niche that wasn't already out there from a recruitment perspective. From your side, I mean, what was your driving factor for starting your own business? What kind of kicked things off?
Yeah, so I am not going to say that, okay, everything we're doing is new and different to what other consultancy companies are doing. So like what I'm always saying is that we are not in competition with any other consultancy business. So we have our niche and they probably have theirs. But in terms of, you know, what at least for myself, the drivers, like I said, I thought that I have learned all different dimensions of different ropes, and that's not just technical, it's commercial, legal, many different things. And by being in a small business, we can be more agile and more available and accessible to across the industry. And as we have been, you know, talking previously, and as mentioned briefly, we have also been helping, you know, different countries and different continents. So these are some of the things that in a small business, you know, you can turn things around, you know, fairly quickly. The decision making is quicker, and you know, we can be, you know, providing services to major, you know, Western countries. Let's say, I don't know, like UK or US, etc., etc. Or it may be that we can also, as we have been doing sometimes, you provide, you know, lower rate to a developing country. So these are the types of flexibility that you have as to what to do, what not to do, and, you know, where to tap into. So, you know, overall, like I said, you know, I can't say that, okay, everything is perfect in a small business, like I said, but that applies to all businesses. You know, not just consultancy, that there are always peaks and troughs. But in terms of flexibility and agility, that's what I enjoy most, and that's one of the main reasons I consider starting my own business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can understand that the need and interest in, I guess, being more agile as a small business and that type of thing is why a lot of people start up as well, I guess, especially having worked for some large organizations like you have. And from my perspective, you know, one of the things that I found interesting but challenging at the same time is, you know, the many hats that you have to wear. Like, you can be the IT guy, the payroll person, the business development person, you know, for us, the recruiter as well, and that type of thing. So it's kind of a bit of everything. How have you kind of found and managed that, you know, that entrepreneurship journey? And have you had your peaks and troughs and all that type of thing?
I mean, peaks and troughs. I mean, we have been busy always. I mean, like
Right.
when I'm saying peaks and troughs, it's like a bigger peak and a smaller peaks. There hasn't
Yeah.
been any troughs. But on the other point that you're saying, like wearing many different hats, that I think you know already the answer. That is no exception. So if you want to be, you know, building your small business, then you need to be hands-on. And by hands-on, like you mentioned, maybe the commercial and legal administrative. So that's one definition of hands-on, but also hands-on in, you know, like technical side, because the teams that I have had previously, teams of 20 or so people, if you're managing teams of you know, such sizes, you would not have you know, as much time to spend on, you know, doing everything. But here, you know, a lot of work that I do, I may be sole resource or I may be working with my colleagues, but they, as you know, also quite experienced. So being hands-on in from whichever angle you look at it, if you go to a small business, that is probably not even a choice. You have to be doing it, and that's maybe one of the rewards, especially for someone like technical. You will not just tell people, you know, what they need to do, but you have to be doing yourself.
Yeah, you have to roll the sleeves up and yeah, get on
Yeah,
with it, I guess. That's
true.
you know, anyone starting a business has to do it, I guess. So it's just part of it.
I
Um,
agree.
I, yeah, and with just I guess getting back to kind of bespoke energy and what you guys are providing from a service perspective. What is what you mentioned earlier? You've got your niche, and that's what you like to stick in. What is that niche like? What are you kind of targeting, and what are you supporting your clients in?
Yeah, so the activity that I mean, the thing is that normally clients know what they are looking for. So, and we're not aiming to influence that. If they're asking our views of what we should do, of course we would influence. But a lot of work that client requests us to do in Australia predominantly, and to a lesser extent internationally, are based around power system modeling and simulation, including developing the models. And some of these are more routine modeling and analysis. Some of them are quite sophisticated. For example, developing a model for an inverter or something similar, or a lot of focus. My colleagues are quite strong in developing a wide area. EMT models, performing studies, and the studies are very wide range. So we do grid connection studies, but it's not just grid connection. So we do also serve clients on power system planning, power system operation. Also increasingly and surprisingly, but a positive surprise only, a lot of studies to do with commercial research, if you like. So that's one main stream. The second stream, it's predominantly the technical advice, and mostly in the form of regulatory development, technical standards in Australia, internationally in many different countries, on power system, on different technologies like inverter-based loads or grid-forming inverters, etc. And as I'm sure you have seen, I am personally also fairly active on training and workforce development. So there are many other things, but if I just want to stick to three main points, I would say these are the main three services that we offer.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I've seen, yeah, as you say, very active with the training side of things, and it always looks like they're a big success because it looks like when the pictures are taken, there's lots of people attending. So is that something that is, still gives you energy? You enjoy that kind of developing talent and the engineers coming through and that type of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So and the shortest training I have run is for 3 full days. The longest is for 5 days, and almost always I am the sole person that doing the training. So like, it's quite a big investment. It's not just because okay, we have something to say and we want to share our experience and knowledge to industry. You would do it. Again, you have to be looking after the logistics, and then like after 4 or 5 days, it will take another 4 or 5 days for your body to recover. And we also, whilst again this is down to people that are interested, we do offer repeat training from time to time, but also every year at least one, normally 2 new training that we offer, which also the time investment to prepare these materials. Part of this is because the industry is moving so rapidly that the knowledge that we had like 3 years ago or 4 years ago may not be sufficient. Of course, if we don't have the knowledge of 3 or 4 years ago, first we need to acquire that. But even after we acquire that, things are changing so rapidly that we need to be constantly updating our knowledge and skills.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I guess one of the most important parts of the power industry over the past few years in Australia specifically has been that power systems industry, or power systems discipline, I would say. And with transmission and distribution growing and the myriad of renewable energy projects on the horizon, there's no sign of the need for power systems modeling and that type of thing to be slowing down. So I can understand why the training part of your business is busy and is not slowing down on that front either. So what's your view on this part of the market though, and how it's changed, I guess, over the past few years, and how it's adapted and where it potentially could go?
Yeah, so I think I touched on that briefly, when I was in the UK, but starting from my early days experience here in Australia, and this is not the exaggeration, it's reality that you were seeing probably 2 to 3 wind farm every year, like very small sizes. We're talking about 100, 200, 400 was the absolute maximum. You see, there wasn't any batteries, there wasn't any solar farm, no other form of, technology. But if we're looking at any region of the NEM, and WEM is also following the same, you're seeing projects on daily basis. I'm sure TNSPs and AEMO receive project at different stages in daily basis. So the quantity of projects definitely has increased quite significantly, and the size of each individual project has also increased. And the other thing is that back then, a lot of these projects that we're referring to, typically in remote and radial part of the network, because the main focus was where is the best wind or solar resources, and then what is the cost of building new substation, and what's the cost of building acquiring the land, and all this bring you to the same direction. But over the many years, as developers have experienced, some of those parts of network may be less desirable or much less desirable from an electrical perspective. Therefore, things have also changed. So these days, you see much larger projects connecting in a stronger part of the network, or even if they are not a stronger part of network, you see that many projects connecting in similar part of the network, and that is irrespective of whether those parts of network are declared as renewable energy zones, or even in regions like Queensland, the projects mostly connecting in similar areas, and then Queensland government and Powerlink try and declare them as renewable energy zones. But similar approach, so meaning that you see more concentration of inverter-based resources in condensed area that previously maybe it was only an exception, predominantly in South Australia. And with all this said, now until recently, the exercise of connecting a generator, meaning that you can connect generator pretty much wherever you want, subject to some limitation, whereas these days a lot of these larger size and concentrated projects, simply they cannot connect to the network. So which has brought us to another paradigm that it's not just connecting generation, but especially the transmission system also need to evolve, and a lot of new connection in transmission network, which is unprecedented. If you're talking like 5 years back, this was simply not something that we are talking about. And I believe this is the direction that it will go for next 20 or so years. So I don't see there is going to be any change.
Yeah, okay. And I guess, that's one of the reasons I set up Connect You, was because of that transmission requirement that's kind of coming up over the next, however many years it's going to be. So yeah, no, it's interesting to see. And do you think the transmission perspective is like the biggest challenge facing the power industry, or what would your kind of key thing outside of just power systems specifically, like what is your key challenge that you think that is kind of coming for the power industry over the coming years in Australia?
If we just look at what a power system is and what it comprised of, so the first is generation, whether synchronous generation or inverter-based resources. Then we have network, which is transmission and distribution network, not just the transmission. And last but not least, which is probably even less widely discussed compared to transmission that you're mentioning, the third and very important elements are the loads, and then distributed energy resources. Historically, we have considered loads as static and not really much of relevance from a positive or negative perspective. Then we have seen a very large penetration of distributed PV in Australia, which is one of the top 4, if I'm not mistaken. across the board. The others, the likes of Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, but they are much better interconnected power systems. And then these days we are seeing a lot of large inverter-based loads, not generators, likes of data centers in particular, and electrolyzers with very large sizes, proposing to connect to the power system. Obviously, it's very early days, so probably like 10 or 15 years back compared to where we were with the likes of solar or battery generation. But the opportunities are immense, and this project can develop fairly quickly. It's not like a typical wind project that may take 7 years or longer to develop. So we have, I'm not suggesting that it is perfect, but with regard to connecting a generator to the grid, there has been a lot of knowledge and experience built. But I agree with you with transmission, probably less, because we have considered maybe transmission as cables, lines, etc. It's not as simple because, for example, when we talk about low system strength, the impact on protection systems is not something that we have looked at. So we should be looking at transmission system in more detail. But the one that has even been less attended and investigated are the third element of our system, which you can bundle them as the load and distributed energy resources.
Right. Okay. So that's kind of the next pending item on the list for more knowledge and I guess discovery to go into on that front, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, next meeting today, not tomorrow.
Yeah. And then in terms of, like, you mentioned about the generator connection process and how things have improved, because that has been such a focus, and you from a recruitment perspective, you see how that has been a focus. Where do you think that's up to? Do you think that that's getting close to a good system in place now, or do you think there's still some work to do around how the connection process is run or resourced?
Yeah, so to me, these are journey, and we should be open-minded. So like everyone comes with good intent, but we should be open-minded. That is very important, because everything will follow a gradual evolution. So we cannot revolutionize overnight. So there has been a lot of good work being done, but nothing is perfect. There are always opportunities to improve. There has been a lot of capabilities even among the younger engineers that been built, or performing studies or writing scripts to automate this. Definitely not a big problem currently. And with AI, I would say that probably in next 3-4 years, there may not be, if not quicker, by the way, there may not be a need for human intervention for running studies. That's not really
right.
What we need, but where we may be lacking, because our workforce is very young, is the analytical skills. And the other thing is that I'm not picking up on basically our engineers, or definitely not on younger engineers. Things are becoming much more complex in a synchronous dominated system. It would have been a lot easier if you see something that you hadn't seen before, to confidently, and maybe asking one or two colleagues whether this is an instability or it is not. Whereas in inverter dominated system, it's a lot more sophisticated, a lot more flexible, a lot more complex and non-linear. So the past experiences may not necessarily count a lot. And unfortunately, this is not a good news. The thing is that as we are trying to get to 100% renewable generation, adding each 1% may increase the challenges by order of magnitude. And this may feel exaggeration, but I think that's where we are going. Now, answering your question, moving on to other questions, what I can share in terms of opportunities for improvement. One that I mentioned, I think, with the AI, the automation should be something that really release our very scarce resources to do more of assessment and analytical capability rather than running the studies. Notwithstanding that, and just a nice segue to the point that I mentioned previously, if we're seeing most of project happening in the same area for various reasons, for example, in New South Wales, they are declared as renewable energy zones. They are guaranteed to have a stabilizing mechanisms and providing a more timely connection. One thing that it is an ongoing discussion in international community and a secret working group that I'm a convener. And again, unfortunately, the good news or bad news is that in Australia, we are ahead of rest of the world, which means that there is not a lot to learn from. But one point which has been discussed in Australia, I'm not saying that I'm the first person suggesting, there has been a lot of discussion, but it hasn't still been implemented or formulated, is that if you're seeing so many of these projects happening in the same area, if there are opportunities to bundle and combine them and make an assessment that if there is an instability, of course, it must be addressed, but there may be an opportunity for the network owner to address and perhaps the cost to be shared across the impacted generators. Because if we continue the approach that we are doing, look at each generator in isolation, there is simply not going to be enough engineers and enough computing power for us to analyze them all simultaneously. And every region is equally busy, as we discussed. It's not just one region that we can or we should focus on.
Yeah, okay. And from, without being as in the weeds of, the industry or this part of the industry as you are, what are the developments in AI? Have you seen some AI tools that are being used that you feel like this is going to be a bit of a game changer over the next few years in terms of the talent shortage around having enough engineers?
Currently, it's not really widely used. Besides the typical tools which are not really oriented for power systems, there is not a lot. There are decent level of research and development, but it's not enough. But the opportunities are enormous, because with AI, like if you only think of AI as the things that are agnostic of power engineering, for example, automation, if it was only to be this, that by itself is, a huge impact. Notwithstanding that there has been, almost every consultancy company have their own automation tools. I'm not suggesting that they don't exist, but with AI, you can take it to the next level. So like I said, we're realistically not going to have a lot more engineers. So that's something that we need to be conscious. So how we can use such a scarce resource more judiciously. But unfortunately, if you're asking the question of if there are practical examples of AI being widely used in power system discipline, there are not a lot of success stories I can share. I am, however, aware that AI is very extensively used, for example, for forecasting, like weather forecasting, or other disciplines that indirectly feed into power system engineering. But if your interest is the kind of modeling and simulation of power system, there is not really anything of substance in practical power system engineering.
Yeah, okay. And I guess one of the things that we are seeing about development of AI is that it's moving very quickly. So it's one of those things where it might not be right now, but within a year or two, it might be a different story. And it sounds like it needs to be a different story for things to continue at the rate that they are at.
Yeah, I agree with you. First, because it's not there today, it doesn't mean that it won't happen. So we should be open-minded. And I totally agree with you also. The other thing is a need base. So again, we should be, open-minded. Because we don't have it, it doesn't mean we shouldn't. And then consider what opportunities we will gain by relying on AI and what we can do, which we may not be able to do today, because everyone, I'm sure you talk in this industry is fairly busy.
Yeah. There's not many people that are not busy at the moment in this industry, as you would know as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a telltale sign of what's happening. In terms of like, the energy sector in general in Australia has kind of been on household screens non-stop with the recent election and all that type of stuff that's happened. It seems like it's more in the forefront than it ever has been. So they talked about nuclear, now it's focusing on 100% renewables. There's lots of different strategies and theories that have come up. From your perspective, what do you think the future of Australia's energy mix will look like? What's the ideal, do you reckon?
I would always, this is what I discuss in my training, I discuss with people, different people, is that we need to have different tools in the toolbox. So there is not one technology that we should focus, and if so, there may be consequences, especially for a country like us that is very isolated from rest of the world. The ambition for renewable energy is very high, and very rightly so, by the way. I'm not discouraging that. And at the same time, we don't have any manufacturing capability of this kind. So in the end, we are importer of technologies that come from the likes of Germany and China and US, which by themselves have the US for now, maybe not a very large aspiration, but that's probably momentary. What I'm trying to say is that the factories that are in those countries already, very busy. So to answer your question of how I see the generation mix will look like, I would think that there will be many grid forming inverters. And again, if I'm looking at currently what is happening in Australia, by far is ahead of any other country worldwide. So we're probably talking about like 100 projects connected or in various stages of application with AEMO and TNSPs, whereas in other countries it's not even 10. Again, this is not a competition. I'm not trying to be comparing and saying that we have taken too many trophies and let's go and take a rest. So I would think that there will be a lot more grid following inverters. I think it's still a very relevant technology, as we see in wind, solar, and even sometimes in batteries, pump hydro. I would say a lot more grid following inverters compared to grid forming inverters. I do see that some synchronous generators will exist. So really, as I was mentioning earlier, in response to another question that you had, as we try to get, let's say, from 80% to 85% renewable, or from 85 to 90, the level of challenges are going to be significantly higher. And also the cost to achieve that is going to be significantly higher. The question that I would put here is that, do we have to be at exactly 100%? If I'm looking at AEMO's ISPs, the projection is that there will be a lot more gas fire station that will be connected in the NEM. And to me, that makes sense. Of course, I'm not expert in that domain, but I'm just quoting. And also trying to, again, have different tools in the toolbox. To me, whether we like or dislike, coal-fired generation, it's getting towards its end of the life. I don't see any future for coal-fired station, and with nuclear plants, also nothing wrong with the technology, but we have zero capability in Australia. If we start today, in the best case scenario, we will have in 15, maybe 20 years. So it's probably not the technology that we can focus on, but with gas, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 years. So it's a lot quicker to connect, and we have good capability. So I would think that having gas will complement renewable to a small extent. I'm not suggesting that we have 50% of gas-fired generation, because otherwise it will negate the purpose. But simply we cannot close our eyes on limitations that we have with variability of wind and solar, and then the duration of battery storage that we currently get. So that's how I would see the future system will look like in terms of generation mix.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. I think, not putting all your eggs in one basket is definitely a good approach. Like you say, I think if you go all in on renewables completely 100%, like that could be as big a risk as not doing it, if you know what I mean. So I think that it's important that, like you say, by pushing those extra percentages, it puts pressure on all different parts of the different parts of the industry and that type of thing. So yeah, I get what you're saying. It's important to have a mix. When we talk about energy mix, it needs to be a mix. It's not just one or the other. So understood. And then I guess kind of circling back to like the talent shortage. I mean, it'd be remiss of me not to talk about talent with somebody so heavily focused in power systems modeling and studies and that type of thing. It's obviously been a very, very difficult journey from a talent perspective over the past few years. There's just not enough engineers. It's a bit of a, I guess, robbing Peter to pay Paul situation, where it's a bit of a merry-go-round in that sense. You've talked about AI as a potential solution. What else do you think can be done to kind of address the talent shortage that's going on in that space at the moment? Because from what you're saying, it sounds like it's only going to get worse and there's going to be more engineers needed rather than the requirement to go downwards. So what do you think can be done?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably you can answer part of it better than I do, but historically, Australia has been able to recruit people from overseas. And last time I spoke to you, you mentioned for maybe transmission distribution, that is still the case, but maybe with like power system, especially like kind of modeling simulation, that is less of opportunity. And we already discussed that, because if you're looking at US or you're looking at UK or Europe or China, all those countries also busy with things that they are doing. So it's not that the only country that look at renewable integration is Australia. So importing resources probably is not going to be the most immediate solution that will fix our challenge. Realistically, we're not going to be having a lot more engineers. We surely have and should have more engineers, but like I said, how we can use them more judiciously, you touched on yourself in summary on the use of AI, but that will just release the capacity. So let's fix the first problem, that currently, regardless of a skill set, they are more than used in different dimensions. So how we can release some of the capacity of the resources, and then how we can bring them up to speed if they are younger graduate engineers, or to retain and update their skills. Like I said, and that's probably a good thing for an engineer, that everything that we do now may be different to past 5 years. And if you're looking at future in past, next 5 years, would probably be different. So there are a lot of challenges, but how we update and improve our skill set. And again, if everyone works like 40 or 45 or 50 hours a week, there's no opportunity, like to learn new skills and new knowledge. To me, that is very important. So I should say my experience with younger generation in terms of running, let's say, PSSE or PSCAD or Power Factory or automating things, they are extremely capable. So even more capable than generation of mine. I think you are younger, so I don't put yourself in the same basket as me. But I guess where this is lacked, and this is, again, I'm not picking up on younger engineers. This is an overall shortage in industry, that skills are probably the easier thing, but it's the knowledge that, like I said, take an example, that if we're looking at the response, is it stable or is it unstable? So what measures, what wisdom do we have to look at it? And unfortunately, that comes based on experience. So this is not the easiest thing. Like I said, we have been trying to bridge the gap in the industry by providing training that are not teaching people how to run studies, but to provide some of those things that I have learned over like 25 or so years hard way, but that will go as far as it can go. So, like, to me, these are suites of measures that has to be done concurrently. And the first, it needs to start with recognition that people need to have some free time to learn new things, because if they don't have new time, they don't learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I guess yourself at Bespoke Energy are kind of trying to do your part with the training side of things. Like, that sounds like it's very much needed. And the problem, as you say, is the engineers having time to actually do the training, because the industry is so busy. So it's it's a difficult bridge to gap, I guess. But we'll see how it plays out over the next few years. Hopefully, a bit of AI introduction can help with that. In terms of just generally speaking in the power industry, it doesn't have to be modeling and studies specific. What do you think over the next 5 to 10 years, based on projects, pipelines, and all that type of stuff, would be the most in-demand skill sets? Whether it's an engineering discipline or something else. Like, is there something that you see coming up where you feel like there's going to be high demand for that skill?
I think power engineering, wherever you look at, if it's like transmission distribution you're discussing, or like power system modeling, simulation, grid connection, wherever you look at is going to be busy. Then the reason is very simple, because like I said, okay, so these assets can be initially looked at in isolation, but then the power system is really an orchestration of impact of all these different devices. And then we're talking about demand, different types of inverter-based loads or distributed energy resources. So even if we think we don't know enough, and we don't have enough expertise on the other aspects, which they have been happening for a while, then that is definitely a skill shortage. That because a lot of these projects happening, if we talking about data center in particular, a lot is happening. Electrolyzer maybe a little bit a slower trajectory, and things around the distribution network, because, and I mean, I don't disagree with you, you are quite right. So a lot of things to be done, and things to be undergoing a different paradigm when it comes to transmission network. But then if you look at distribution network, that is already lagging behind quite significantly. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It's very important, but skills that need to be developed based around. One that I can also suggest, and anyone is, if it's a protection expert, I think they have a guaranteed job for another 30 years, actually. That is, to my experience, it's one of the probably most scarce. There are not both the quantity and quality of resources that are available. It's significantly below all other areas that we discussed. And by the way, we recognize and agree that in other areas, it's not already enough. So in protection, it's definitely falling very short. Part of it might be that the IBR have very unique characteristics. By IBR, the acronym inverter-based resources, very different characteristics, which challenged the fundamental principles of protection systems. So I would think, if anyone listening this and they are protection expert, they have guaranteed career. But a question that sometimes younger engineer ask me, okay, like, should I be staying in power industry, because all these things may be done and dusted in 5 or 10 years. I like the optimism, but if we look at the predictions from governments, from AEMO, any party, look at the aim is by 2050 to be at net zero. If we can achieve that, it will be a very great accomplishment. We are still in the beginning, like I said, and I mean that as you want to get from 80% to 85%, it's going to take a lot longer. It's not that, okay, we build the foundation, we can just copy and paste. So my suggestion is that if anyone that is active in this area, younger engineers, they not sure about certainty, or maybe people fresh off uni and say, okay, is it a worthwhile long career that I can have in, let's say, another 30 or so years. I am very optimistic that it will be the case. It's not that in 5 years everything is done and we will be moving on to something else.
Yeah, no, I think that's valuable advice for anybody coming into the industry, because there's always that skepticism, I guess, that, you know, yes, it's busy now, but what happens in, as you say, 5 to 10 years if I'm just starting out? And as you say, it's a question that you've heard a lot. So that's a bit of reassurance from somebody with some years of experience in the industry. So no, that's definitely a positive. And from an advice perspective, I mean, if you can think of one single best piece of advice that you've had in your career, what would that be?
Okay, so you had 2 questions. So you asked me one, I combined. If asking me personal, I will answer that first, and I then can provide advice to younger or emerging engineers. What I would say is like maybe a cliche, but that's how I operate. I don't say like go and learn, like EMT or go learn for protection. A lot of these skills can be acquired, even knowledge can be acquired, but how we operate, because it's very a small industry, very small industry. I'm sure you know, like 50% of the people they are on your phone call. So the advice I have received, which I comply with, and I have, and for the rest of my life, is very simple, something that everyone has heard, and that is to me, truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So no one knows everything. So for younger engineers, we don't need to be ashamed. We don't know anything. So I don't know a lot of things. If we are in realization that we don't have certain capabilities or knowledge, that is totally fine. We're not going to learn everything. Even after 40 years, we retire, we don't know a lot of things. So how do we know things that we don't know? And we can go and ask other people to do it. So as long as we have a niche capability, that is all good. If we're going to be more all-rounder engineers, and nothing wrong with that, but it means that you won't be focusing on one particular thing. Again, this is probably another good segue, that people can be focused on one discipline or one niche area. It's nothing really right or wrong. There are personal preferences, or someone may not want to be as deep in one area, but learn and apply multiple areas with a little bit less depth. And advice to people in the industry, young or less young, is that obviously it is a competitive market. I'm not here to suggest that, okay, don't have any expectation of salary. Of course, it is important, but with limits, or don't change your job, for another 5 or 10 years. I'm not in a position to give a prescription to people to use. There are horses for courses, and honestly, sometimes we need to make mistake to learn from it. So I don't suggest that if someone like looking for a high salary necessarily on wrong trajectory. It may be in very wrong trajectory, but one that we need to have definitely, that's non-negotiable, regardless of what our family circumstances are, what our aspiration, is a point that I mentioned earlier, which we need to have a niche, and that could be anything really. And for that, we need to build foundations correctly. If we build our foundations right, then the rest will follow. It's more of experience. And like I said, how we can acquire new skills every year and update our capability. And having the right foundation is very important, because if the foundation is not built correctly, it become just more and more difficult to fix it as we become more and more experienced.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because one of the feedback we get around candidates when somebody doesn't have that niche is that they're too general. And often companies, and to kind of advance your career, you need that niche, that specialization. And I think, as you say, that comes from that solid grounding within a certain discipline. So yeah, and I think that is very good advice that I often give to people, but they don't always listen to the recruiters. It's more, somebody like yourself explaining that is very valuable,
Yeah.
I would say, to
And
junior engineers.
I'm not here to give advice to anyone. It's just sharing my view. It's not a prescription. Like I said, sometimes people need to make mistake to learn. But if this is like asking me what I've done, I haven't really done many different things. So, part of, why I know this area relatively well is because I have been doing it for more than 20 years.
Yeah. No. Cool. And I guess just to kind of wrap things up from a quick fire perspective, we tend to do a few quick fire questions at the end. So I'll run you through those. No need for long answers, just the first thing that jumps into your head. So one technology you think we'll be hearing more about in the next 5 years?
I think we've been just talking about one thing, which would be cliche if I say AI. So, but I mean, that is something I think we will hear more. I'm pretty sure we will hear more. If you want an answer on power system, I would say inverter-based loads. So that's something that we will definitely, the likes of electrolyzers, data centers, with all electrification and so many electrical inverters that probably some of us also have in our houses. So I would think inverter-based loads is what we will hear a lot more in next 5 years.
Cool. And then one thing you'd love to see change in the industry?
I mean, that's maybe like more of a wish than reality, but I am fortunate that it has happened to me, is that if it was possible, it's not going to be for every single engineer in industry to work in other sectors within power engineering. I'm referring to, like, if you are working for OEM, to work at TNSP or AEMO or vice versa. So that because each of these organizations have unique challenges and unique considerations, sometimes we may be dismissive if we don't know the challenges for the other side of industry. So everyone means well, everyone trying to do the right thing. We don't always, everyone make mistakes, but how we can better understand the limitations, challenges, consideration that one side of industry has. So if this was to be a wishful statement, I would say that maybe someone 10 years experience should have probably worked at least in 2 different organizations. I'm not saying try every single type of organization, but just not being, we're talking about the nicheness that is for granted, but at the same time, there is a delicate balance of how niche you are and how much we understand. That maybe even a 6-month secondment or something to understand the challenges in other side of business.
Yeah, I guess it gives you the different perspectives within the industry and within the niche, doesn't it? So yeah, I understand that, and it makes your career path more attractive, and you kind of gain better opportunities off the back of that as well. So
sure,
it makes sense. And then last question, more on the personal side. If you weren't in energy, what do you think you'd be doing?
Okay, this one will be really quick. I will either be a chef or I will be a lawyer, and I will be making more money than I'm making today.
Chef or a lawyer? Okay, interesting. So I guess that the chef piece mustn't just come out of the blue. You must be, somewhat of a handy cook at home. Do you do a bit of cooking around the house?
Yeah, a lot more than a bit, and I have my niche, so I will always change things. These days,
Right.
I don't often look at recipes. So
Right.
yeah, I think it hasn't come out of blue. So yeah, I think I'm okay. That department.
Excellent. What kind of restaurant would you work in? What would be the cuisine?
I don't know. Like, I think, that's what I know, that I'm normally more of a quality than quantity person.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I can think of. But what kind of cuisine I make, I don't know. It may be different things. I think probably international, I would think.
Right. Okay. Nice. Interesting. It's always good to know that. I'm sure you would have been
Think of
successful in
that.
that as well. Yeah. No, fantastic. And I think that's a very good way to end our conversation. And yeah, really appreciate your time, Babak. I know you're a busy man and you've got a lot going on with business and that type of thing. So I really appreciate you taking the time out. Your insights and experiences are very valuable to anybody who's listening. So really appreciate your time. All the best with the future and with Bespoke Energy. And yeah, obviously that we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, so looking forward to continue our collaboration.
All good. All right. Thanks, Babak. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.